Welcome, everyone, to the Society Hub podcast series here at the School for Business and Society at the University of York. I'm delighted to be welcoming today Sanya Sarode, one of our own graduates from the MSc in Human Resource Management here at the School for Business and Society, and indeed a graduate with distinction. We are delighted to welcome Sanya, given her wealth of experience in her career, but also in her learning journey. Sanya, welcome.
Hi, Shanae. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for the podcast.
Thank you very much indeed. And we're equally excited that you could join us today. So thank you very much for giving us your time, Sanya. Sanya, given your career and learning journey to date, I thought it would be helpful for our viewers and listeners if we could start with you providing us with an overview of your journey so far, both from a career perspective and from an education perspective, please.
Right. So I am an international student and I come from India. I started my bachelor's back in 2018. So I did my bachelor's 2018 to 2021, and it was in mass media and communication. Very soon I realized I didn't want to pursue the conventional paths that the degree offered. Then I did all sorts of different jobs. I worked as a video editor, content writer, associate content writers, and different things. And while I was working this content writing position in a really amazing startup, and you know how startups are, you kind of need to do more than what you signed up for. Have to dabble in all sorts of departments.
Indeed.
Was given HR responsibilities, which I was very reluctant to take initially. And I was like, I didn't sign up for this. I don't know what HR is. I can't handle people. But very soon I realized I really liked doing all those responsibilities and wanted to kind of learn more. So the next job that I had was as HR manager in a different startup. And to some, HR manager obviously is a very senior position, but the position that I had was in name HR manager, but was not as senior as you would think. But I did that for about 2.5 years, and I gained really amazing experience. And that is when I realized, I really wanted to pursue HR academically as well, and that would kind of enhance my career opportunities, so forth. So I came to York. University of York was the option that I chose, and did my master's from 23 to 24. Graduated with distinction very recently, and now we're here.
Fantastic. That's really helpful, Sanya. And congratulations again on your distinction. Just so well deserved. And I know it takes a lot of hard work. So fantastic for you. I'm delighted for you. It would be really helpful, Sanya, if you were able to speak for a few moments on what have been your particular highlights. And listening to your overview, it's really impressive, the journey you've taken so far. And you've talked briefly there about a lot of opportunities and grabbing it despite your own trepidation. So what for you have been the highlights in your career and learning journey so far?
Highlights, I would say, doing all sorts of different jobs when you're not sure what your career path is. One thing that you would want to take up for your life, at that point. But I did dabble in different jobs, and while I was appointed as an HR manager, I am very, I would say, proud of it, because it was a startup and there wasn't a lot of standard operating procedures already in place, and it was like working from ground zero. So my career highlight, I would say, began from there, and that is when not only that I learned about HR, but a lot of policies that I from scratch developed for them that they still use, and obviously have been adding to them. So I kind of implemented their performance management systems, conflict resolution policies, things like that. Um, and since then, while doing masters, I have been associated with International Association for Democracy, a very amazing organization. It's a charity-based organization, and they work defending and promoting democracy all around the world. So especially for, governments and countries that are not democratic at the moment.
Really amazing. And what's really encouraging and wonderful to hear, Sanya, is the breadth both of your experience in your home country, but also internationally. And also really interesting that it's not just experience you've gained in paid roles, but also you've spoken about the importance of volunteering as a route to both contribute to an important cause, but also a way of enhancing learning as well. So thank you for sharing that with us. Just moving on to our next question, Sanya. Have there been mentors or particular experiences, maybe colleagues, family, and friends that have really helped you on your journey so far?
I've had amazing professors throughout my journey at University of York throughout this 1 year period. So I've had different modules, different in different semesters, and I had different professors. Um, they were all really amazing, really helpful, went above and beyond to make sure every student, if I talk about my personal experience, to make sure, I feel um kind of I belong, that I'm learning things, that I'm understanding things, going out of their way to make sure if there's a group project or something that everybody else is like doing it together, everything is working well and everyone is mingling well. um and really not just working as in professional capacity, but also as a friend to guide in future kind of opportunities that are coming along the way. So I've been really, I would say, grateful for all the professors that I've had, and they've really all been kind of a mentor to me.
Wonderful. And what was really interesting there that you said, Sanya, that while those professors have been really helpful and supportive during your time of study with us, you've also mentioned that they can also be a support going forward, professional networks and friendships going forward as well, which is wonderful to hear. So that's really, really helpful. If I could ask, Sanya, in your experience, what are the main challenges from your point of view that graduates face when pursuing the next phase of their career, particularly when completing their studies and before moving on to that next position?
Right. So there are different kinds of people. There are people who have their path laid down and are very, they know what they want to do and they do that. Some people are just beginning. Maybe there's a career change. Maybe, they don't have enough experience or they don't know what to do ahead. So I think one major challenge that everybody faces is kind of decision fatigue,
Mm.
as to which part to take, because obviously there's a deadline. Whether you want to do PhD, you want to apply for scholarships, or everything has a deadline. If you don't, you want to like waste another year. Even there are like peak recruiting periods. So if you don't apply for those jobs, again, that time is wasted. So I think that is kind of a major decision that graduates face, that I am facing at the moment. I also think there are people like come from different backgrounds, and especially for me, that I go like I feel a lot of times imposter syndrome. Like, do I deserve it? Am I in the right place? Um, I think that, and especially for I am an international student, I would say there are added, challenges of immigration policies, visas. What are the requirements? Even if you can stay in the country, what are the requirements that will enable you to stay in the country? In general, there is also like market saturation, where when you're not aware of how, for example, I was not aware how a UK market works. What are the
Mm.
requirements? There was a time when so I've done HR course, which is CIPD accredited. So there was a time where it was an essential requirement that you must have CIPD, some kind of
Mm.
level. Now what I've been facing and seeing with all the interviews that I've done is it's not, people just don't stop there. It's no more, okay, have you done CIPD? It's more like, okay, that is one thing, but what more then?
Mm.
So, market always keeps on fluctuating. So I think those are the challenges that any graduate would face, going ahead. Yeah.
That's really helpful, Sanya. And if I can pick up on a number of those points just to summarize and uh, to add emphasis to help our listeners and viewers, you mentioned about really the additional areas that you need to manage within your plan and your timing. There's the responsibility of being an international student and the visa requirements, being aware of the peaks and troughs of the particular sector that you're applying for. And then something really interesting there in the latter stages of what you mentioned is just how the essential criteria within job vacancies can change. The market is always fluctuating. So previously, jobs required the CIPD, which is the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, the professional body of the human resource management profession that you've just graduated in, that before vacancies indicated this was mandatory. But now you're noticing that not only is that requirement mandatory in most HR vacancies, that employers are also looking for those additional skills and competencies and experience up to this point. Would that be a fair summary?
Yeah, that is actually very fair summary. Yeah.
Great, excellent. Thank you. It's so helpful to have your perspective on this, Sanya. So thank you for your generosity. And the other important point that struck me when you were speaking is just your honesty, Sanya, of experiencing imposter syndrome. For listeners and viewers who may be less familiar with that syndrome, it's where people of any persuasion can really feel have self-doubt. Is this where I'm at? Is this the right place in my journey? Should I be applying for these jobs? Should I be applying for this course of study, etc.? So your honesty, I know, will be really important to our listeners and viewers. So thank you for that. And I think your qualification, graduating with distinction, is testimony of just the importance of working through that and not giving up, Sanya. So you're a huge inspiration to listeners and viewers. So thank you for your honesty as well, and for being such an example to so many. What would you suggest helps most at this time when you're going through all of those challenges and the detail of having to plan and focus on so many applications as well?
I think at this point where there are so many things to do, I think remaining organized and having some sort of plan, if it's not, foolproof, it's not very structured, but having some sort of plan and some sort of timeline for yourself is very important because, when you have classes and when you are enrolled, you have structured timeline and you make your routine kind of around that. You make sure you're meeting those deadlines, but as soon as that is over, you like nobody's over you to make sure you get up on time, you do those things. So it's very essential to kind of still maintain that structure in life because, and especially in UK now, it's you have very less daylight time, so it's very easy to be unproductive because you're anyways like your mind doesn't function when it's dark. You're like, okay, the day is over. But and it's very hard, like the days goes by very fast. You won't realize, oh, it's 1 month, it's 2 months, because I had that feeling, oh, okay, I've just graduated, I've just submitted my dissertation, I have time, and you just don't realize it's been already like 2 or 3 months.
Really helpful. Really
Yeah.
helpful,
So
Sanya. I think you've mentioned so many invaluable points there. One, the importance of maintaining that discipline after your studies, when the timetable isn't there and there are no longer assessment deadlines, or feeling I need to be at class. So the importance of that self-motivation and that self-discipline in terms of planning what you're going to be applying for, planning and preparing for interviews as well. And also as an international student, I think it's really perceptive, Sanya, what you said about the daylight time, the winter hours, clocks going back, etc., and how easy it can be to sort of let that motivation wane. And you're clearly a really great example of someone who's maintained that discipline, but a really helpful tip to give our listeners and viewers who I know will be listening from across the globe. So thank you very, very much for that. That's really invaluable advice. Moving on to the next question, Sanya, if I may, what advice and information would you like to have had in advance that may have helped you more at any point in your career?
I wouldn't say that I was not given this information earlier because, all the people that were at the university were really helpful in preparing all the students for what lies ahead. But I think the emphasis is still important on networking because whether it's through LinkedIn or online that you do, or that you go to relevant, networking events that are in professional capacity, doesn't matter what course or what, course you're pursuing. So I think if I would have done that more, I did miss out on quite a lot. So I wish I would have done more networking, more market research early on rather than doing it, when you need something to happen, when you need the results. So preparing far ahead, in advance, and time management, because there are so many things um when when your program ends. So I think if there were things that I did early on that I could see the results now, then doing it now and then seeing results later, because that could be less motivating, when you're just waiting and nothing is happening. So I think networking, market research, very essential, and time management.
Fantastic, really helpful. And I think what's so poignant about what you share in relation to networking, Sanya, is your curriculum during your studies is already intense. And then there's almost a curriculum running through the course around networking and extracurricular activities. So I know that space is really difficult to navigate. And so that would be really helpful for listeners and viewers who are thinking of pursuing a route that you have clearly successfully forged to date as well. So thank you for that. Just moving on to one of our last questions, Anya, if I may. We like to encourage our contributors to the podcast to speak about top tips, and you've mentioned many: time management, networking, etc. But if you were to condense a number of those top tips, what might they be, please?
I think, as these points I've mentioned before, staying adaptable, the career path isn't always linear. Having a plan, but staying open to opportunities, because you never know when comes, one your way. Using any sort of previous experience, whether it's jobs in relevant field, internships as a learning experience, and using those transferable skills to kind of, market yourself to your potential employers. Having a growth mindset, wherein setbacks don't keep you down, but you learn from them to sort of, I think, better whatever you do next. Cultivate a strong personal brand online. There are people, who are not online, but I think at this point, everything is online, and people do kind of see, are you on LinkedIn? What do you do on LinkedIn? How active are you on LinkedIn? Or any other platform which is in professional manner, so to speak. And celebrating small wins is really important, because it can be demotivating, when you're not seeing results. So just celebrating small wins is important.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I really like that note of celebrating as well, because it is so important. Sonia, that's a wealth of top tips for our listeners and viewers. Thank you for your generosity in that regard, Sonia. It is greatly appreciated. And so true about everything being online. Here we are on a podcast, and we ourselves have relied on LinkedIn as well. So really helpful advice to our listeners and viewers. Sanya, we ask all our contributors to the podcast to offer a free resource to our listeners and viewers, something that they may not otherwise have had access to. Might you be able to say a few words on the resource that you have chosen to share with listeners and viewers today, please?
Right. So I am an HR graduate, so I do have more of HR resources. So I am a CIPD member, which you've said what CIPD is. And throughout the interviews, I've really, being subscribed to CIPD newsletters and magazines have really helped me just say what are the, updates on employment law or just what's going on in HR without having to, actually read in detail or just know about. So I would say being subscribed to CIPD newsletters. There are a lot of websites, Indeed, Prospect, Glassdoor, which are free, which also post about companies, what they're doing, what their pay range is, are they good to work or not. So I would say those websites. Another thing I found really helpful is I don't know if it's available to everyone, but Student Circus, I guess University of York has some kind of association with Student Circus, and they post a lot of jobs that are mostly for international students that would require sponsorship in general. So they get all those jobs listed in one place. So I would really recommend that.
Wonderful. That's really helpful, and more than one. So listeners and viewers can find all of the links below in this podcast series. So Sanya, that's been hugely helpful, extremely generous. Thank you so much for sharing your invaluable advice and experience with us all today. We greatly appreciate it. So on behalf of the School for Business and Society here at the University of York, thank you so very much indeed. And we wish you every success in your future career. Thank you, Sanya.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.